and welcome to TechNow, the web series for ServiceNow admins, developers, builders on a wide variety of Now Platform topics. I am very excited to be here today. This is a topic that we love diving into as developers, and even if you're not at this level, keep this video in your back pocket. You may want to dig in further. We're going to be taking apart a service portal application and some of the techniques and requirements and looking at that. But before we get into that, this Deconstruct is sort of a proof of concept, a prototype. We're looking at doing these with other applications, maybe not so novel as the use cases we've got today, maybe a little more practical that you can use in your enterprise. So that's a little bit of what we're here for today. My name is Chuck Tomasi. I'm a senior TPMM at ServiceNow. Had this role for a couple of years, been at ServiceNow since 2010. I was a customer for a couple of years before that. Very happy to have been exposed to that fateful Google search I did years ago in another galaxy far, far away that brought me to this point, and also very fortunate to be able to share this information with you. So we've got a lot of information. We can talk more about bios and whatnot later, but at this point, I'll turn it over to our other co-host, Kreg Steppe, who can...
Hey, everybody. All right. And so, look at there. I clicked the wrong button. All right. We do already have a question for you, Chuck. What does TPMM stand for?
Something to do with bathroom maintenance. I'm not sure. When I figure it out,
right.
I'll let you know, and then I'll have to kill you.
That's right. Anyway, I'm Kreg Steppe. I'm a program manager. I manage Cloud Labs. And as I said before, if you've been to Knowledge or taken any of our virtual or in-person classes that we offer through the training and certs department at ServiceNow, you probably see my handiwork on the back end. I help spin up all the virtual machines that make the labs possible. I specialize in cloud automation, and I've been with ServiceNow since 2014. So it's a whopping 5 years, almost 6 now. And that puts me in the senior category, I think, now. I don't know.
Dinosaur,
maybe.
Fossil? What hashtag you get now?
Yeah, well, probably both. Anyway, so I've been a co-host of TechNow since 2016, and I'll move it right along and bring you over to Jeremy Duncan.
Hey, folks. Glad to be here. I'm Jeremy Duncan. I'm a platform architect on the solution innovation team. I am new to ServiceNow, the company, but I've been on the ServiceNow platform as a customer, developer, architect, evangelist, cheerleader, whatever you want to call it, for 8 years now. So remember my first implementation at Lifeway back pre-Aspen, and have had just the honor to really be on the platform and be a part since then. So honored to be here on the TechNow team, and stay tuned and keep watching.
We're glad to have you as part of the team, Jeremy. Kreg,
honored to be here.
People what they can expect.
Well, on today's show, we're going to take a look at managing your favorites as part of our quick tip, and we're going to continue or look at the New York platform features. Sorry, words are failing me right now. So anyway, and I know we probably need to update this slide because we've thanked everybody a million times for a great Knowledge 19. I guess we can't thank everybody enough, right? So put it on your calendar, get registered for it, because before you know it, Knowledge 2020 is going to be coming. And you don't want to miss it. It's going to be in Orlando from May 3rd through the 7th. It's a great networking opportunity as well as a learning opportunity, because we have workshops from everything to some of the things we're going to be discussing today, all the way to discovery and you name it. All the products are going to be represented at Knowledge, and it's a great place to go and just mingle and talk with like-minded individuals as yourself. And speaking of like-minded individuals, when you're trying to implement ServiceNow, you're always going to come up with some questions, and some of those questions lead to Googling for answers and everything. But wait, don't use Google. Just go to servicenow.com/success, and there's plenty of solutions right there. We got white papers from customers that have implemented the product that, quite frankly, you're probably going to be implementing yourself. There's solutions, documentation. You can explore and search through the different modules and find exactly what you're looking for. So go over to the Customer Success Center ServiceNow.com/success, and you'll find all that information there. There's probably way more information than you need, or there could be just enough. So go check it out. And if you need some additional information, you're trying to build some things out for yourself, go to developer.servicenow.com, and you can get free developer instance, easy access to new releases, because we do make, speaking of New York, some of the New York versions were available there before general availability. There's free learning plans, scripting API, you name it. There's videos. Really, it's a great place to go and drill down to what you're looking for, all the way down to the APIs that we have available if you want to get your hands dirty with some code. So go check that out over at Developer. So now we're going to take a look at quick tips. I'll turn it over to Chuck.
Alrighty. So this is something I was inspired from a gentleman I met at Knowledge. He came up to me and he said, can I organize my favorites a little bit more like the application menus and modules? And he actually turned me on to the technical piece that makes this all possible. So if your favorites start to look like mine, you've got them all random, or maybe you're better at sorting them than I am, they just kind of get out of hand. Very, very quickly, you've got some developer things in place right next to pieces of the application you're working on, right next to tables for that application. It gets chaotic very fast, and you go, oh, wait, I need another one. And you just throw it in there. You want to get to something that's a little more collapsible, so you only need to see what you need to see at that given time. Well, that's where this comes in. And this idea, it takes only a few minutes to implement. This is more of an admin thing. I wouldn't turn your end users loose on this quite yet. But the two key tables you need to know are sys_UI bookmark and sys_UI under bookmark group. So those are the two pieces. The bookmark table or record has a reference to the group, and I'll show you how that works in just a second. I'm going to do this via slideware just in the interest of time, because there is a lot to cover in the main topic. But if anybody wants to see a demo on this, I'll be happy to record something else where it is. I've done this on the community live stream video. We can search for it there as well. So the idea is you start by going to the sys_UI bookmark under group list. There is no module predefined for this, so you have to go through the navigation filter in the upper left. When you do that, you'll get a list of records. Go and create yourself some records. These are the groups. These equate to the application menus. You may even have some. If you've put a star on an entire application menu, it will get all the modules under there, and you will have a collapsible thing. It's like, ooh, how did that work? It's creating this bookmark group table for you. So I typically create one called Developer or System, where I keep things like Studio and scripts background. I create another one for logs, the event log, the system log, the mail logs. You can put your favorites in those groups. This is simply the grouping. Be sure you fill out the field for user to identify it as you, so that obviously it shows up on your favorites. The order is up to you. How do you want to order these groups? And leave the application blank. This simply ties it to an existing application menu. You don't need it here. You don't want it. Have fun with it. So that's step one. Make yourself some groups. Step two is just take a look at the list. Make sure that you filter on your name and it looks like what you expect. Sort by order to make sure they're in the order. Do a list edit if you want. Change them there. Then you have to do something that I wish was already done out of the box. Do it once. You need to set the display value on that group table to the title field. Otherwise, you will be seeing sysids when you try to relate the bookmarks to the bookmark groups. It will be annoying. You won't be able to tell yours from your coworkers. So put those on there. Set that to true. You all know how to do that. Configure table. When you see the title field, set it to true. It goes, oh, great. Now I know what to show in a reference field. That's a one-time thing. Next, I would personalize the sys_UI bookmark list. Personalize the list. Add the group field. It's obviously going to bring up the list collector, aka /bucket, which I'm not supposed to say anymore. So list collector, put it at the end, move it forward up the list somewhere so it looks similar to what you see on the screen. That will allow you to quickly do a list edit and say, put this bookmark in the system group, put this bookmark in the log group, put this bookmark in the TechNow group. However you've got your group set up, you can quickly piece and parse them. Don't worry about the order if it says 13 as your first entry in system, for example. It's like, well, so what? It's still going to sort them within those groups by numeric order. It doesn't matter if it's 13, 17, 25, or 1, 2, 3. They will be sorted in the right order when they're displayed. Okay? Yeah, what I just said. Go and assign those bookmarks to the group. Just watch out for conflicting names. As you can see here, Stacy Bailey has one called TechNow. I have one called TechNow. You're going to need to learn is the first one or the second one. Or you could change your display name to TechNow Chuck. That's how it will display on the left hand. You and your colleagues will have to figure this out. Since I'm on very few systems where I have multiple people doing this particular trick, I don't need to worry about it. But if you are, you'll want to be aware of that. You may have conflicts. Refresh your browser and celebrate your accomplishment with the simplicity you've just done. So developer is an entire group of bookmarks. Very, very quick to do, very handy. I use this all the time. In fact, I've set up a quick XML. So when I jump on a new instance, I throw it on there and it's got at least the bones of what I need for developers and logs. And then I go from there. Very helpful. So another helpful hint, and you'll see this when I get onto my dev system, is to add a group for managing your bookmarks. So if you want to make a change later, you don't have to go back to sys_ui_bookmark_group, sys_ui_bookmark.list and get those tables the hard way. You can just click them here and go, well, I've got my own shortcuts right to where I want to manage. Jeremy, did you have a question?
Yes, Chuck, I do. So Nick is asking, can we get a better front-end UI added to the ServiceNow backlog? So really, I would split that into two questions. Is there a way for external, our customers to get ideas into that backlog? And the second question I would ask is, could we create a UI page? Is this something that a pro code developer might be able to create a page to do?
I invite someone to do this. I also invite someone to put in an enhancement request. You can do that through Hi. Our developers do listen. If enough people go, look, we've got this feature. It's available. Why are we doing this the hard way? Certainly put that in. Can't guarantee that it will be in Orlando or Paris, but if enough people are asking, and I think we're going to a new system where you can actually upvote. So get your friends on board, upvote that baby. So I have to double check on how that's going. I know that we're changing our enhancement process and addressing those enhancements and defects by severity, and upvoting is going to be a new factor. So
that sounds interesting. Okay.
Yeah. So I would love to see this as an easy manage my bookmarks. When you click that pencil or whatever it is on the lower.
Yeah. Should have a drop down that has a group, where you can make her use one.
Put it in a group, drag and drop it around. Bump it up, bump it down. Would love
I'll
to.
get right on that after this meeting, after our TechNow.
Yeah, if somebody does build this, reach out to us, let us know. We'll evangelize it. We'll show it off. So
put it on the community, throw it on share, definitely. All right, let's get on with our main topic. This is Deconstruct. We are going to be taking apart the Jeopardy app and showing you some of the requirements and how these were built. Dive into some deeper topics, and then not just say, gee, this was fun on Jeopardy, but what you can do with it in your apps in your organization. So there's a what's in it for me slide on every one of these sections. So I didn't want to just say, look at what we built. It was fun. Yes, it was fun, but it also had some challenges in there and how those challenges were addressed. So you can start recognizing what those challenges might be in your service portal apps and maybe use some of these techniques to address them as well. I'd also like to hear what your ideas are. I've even got one in here that goes, well, you did it with method A in this piece and you did it with method B in that piece. Why did you do that? I may not even know the answer, but I want to start out. We're going to be taking apart the Jeopardy application that we built specifically for Knowledge 19. We played this 3 times in the developer theater. Kreg was a contestant, rather entertaining one at that. And
I think I owe them money back for losing so badly, but we'll go.
Yeah, you owe me like $2,400.
Yeah.
Or what is that? About 10 stock options?
Yeah, there you go. That's right.
bit.ly.com, or excuse me, bit.ly/sn-jeopardy is where you can find the community link, and there is a link where you can download that from Share on the developer portal right from there. If you want to get into this and you want to tear it apart, load it up on a personal developer instance and look at this exact same code that we're going to be looking at today, it's there for you. Granted, I may make an enhancement or two over the next 2 years, so if you're watching this in 2024, the code may be slightly different, but the concepts will still be the same. All right. This is what it looks like on the share portal. Not going to dwell on that too much if you haven't been to the developer site, developer.servicenow.com. There we are. Got to throw in a sound effect since I've got it here. We've upped our game on the production quality. So let me do a quick screen share and a demonstration of what the gameplay looks like if you haven't seen Jeopardy or you're not familiar. This is based on the popular TV game show that's been around for 30 years, I think it is. Do a
36 as of just the other day. September 10th was the anniversary, and it started in 1984.
How accidentally friendly.
It started in 1964, but the current version.
So I have the Jeopardy board. This is a variation on trivia. Only instead of asking a question and getting an answer, they tell you the answer, and you have to phrase your answer in the form of a question. It's laid out in categories and varying difficulties based on that amount. So I've got several ServiceNow categories. The fossil record. Let's say we've got our players across the top. This is based on one of the games from Knowledge. We've got Daniel, Michael, and Sean. Daniel has control of the board. He says, I'll take the fossil record for 100. And we get, he founded ServiceNow in 2004. And if you know your fossil record from ServiceNow, you would know that Daniel can answer that and say, who is Fred Luddy? In which case, I click the thumbs up. He gets $100, and we go back to the board directly. Very easy. Got it right. Then he says, I'll take the fossil record for 200. This product was a result of the 2000 acquisition of Sky Giraffe. And Michael raises his hand or buzzes in or whatever it is and says the incorrect answer. And I go, oh, I'm sorry, Michael, you get that wrong. And it takes $200 out of his account. Then Sean says, I think I know, and gives another wrong answer. And you can see he also loses $200. And Daniel says, I'm not touching that with a 10-foot pole. So we can mark that card as inactive. And nobody got any money, but Daniel's still in control. You can see the amounts on the top have been updated. Daniel says, let's try a different category. This one's getting out of control. We'll do potpourri for 100. And he gets the daily double. Now, what you don't hear is a sound effect that's in there of that characteristic daily double sound to get everybody's attention and scare the cat. And he says, right. I will bet $200, which I don't think you're really allowed to do. You're only allowed to bet up to the amount. But hey, this is my app, my rules. I try to play as close to the game show as possible, but sometimes it's technically not possible to implement every exact rule. This one I could have, but I'm not going to. Then he makes his wager. We click the daily double image, and it says, this ServiceNow website is a place to post your questions and issues. And he says, of course, what is community.servicenow.com? Gets it right. Gets the $200 added to his account. And that's sort of how the daily double goes. There's more code in Final Jeopardy, which I'll get to in just a minute. One other thing I wanted to show you, and this gets into the requirements that I wanted, is how does the host know the correct answer? Because at no time did we see the correct answer on that screen. And that's what I wanted to show. Now, on the real game show, Alex Trebek, the host of the game show, has some cardboard cards in his hand. To me, that's low tech. I wanted a mobile solution where I could say, use this feature to display the exact version, blah, blah, blah. And what I built is a mobile app. I actually built a service portal page that's called from the Now mobile application. And while these questions are being updated, this screen, every time something new is displayed on that, what I call the card screen, where you see the big text with the question or the answer, it updates here so that me or Alex or whoever's the host of this show just glances at their phone and if somebody says stats.do or system diagnostic stats, they can say, that is correct. And then, of course, they end the game whenever they feel like it. But you don't have to be doing a whole lot of things. This isn't much of a control panel. I didn't want it to be. I wanted to keep this simple so that the gameplay was all over here.
And just to be clear, that was your phone you were displaying. It looked like it was part of the same window.
Phone. Yep.
Okay.
I can back up and say, this is my phone. You can see there's Android controls. It's just being displayed through a remote control presentation. Mm-hmm. So we showed the board. That was one component. That was the first thing I wanted to build, is just how do you lay this thing out? And like most service portal projects, CSS takes 80% of your effort. The actual data model doesn't. And there was also the audio and video components. I have images that I put in the game to show Final Jeopardy, Double Jeopardy. There's also a Final Jeopardy component, which, if you're seeing the slides, is on the far right, where it says, "Hello, Daniel Drace. Here's your thing you have to answer. What is your answer and what is your wager?" Just like real Final Jeopardy, only they write it on a little thing. I said, I wanted them to be able to simply, it was all about experience at this point, is how easy can I make this for somebody to pull up a phone, scan a QR code, answer the question? That's what I wanted. I didn't want them to have to create an account and just, let's get the gameplay, playing the game. Okay, so those were the challenges. Now, in the screen share, I'm sorry, a little bit deeper dive in there. I'm not going to go to the screen share yet, but I wanted to show you really quickly the data model and how that was built. We obviously have a game. The game is, we're playing TechNow Tuesday, or we're playing Game 3 at Knowledge, or we're playing the developer meetup in Phoenix. We have these games already set up, and it just contains high-level information. Then there are cards, which have the question and answer. He founded ServiceNow in 2004. The answer on that would be, who is Fred Luddy? Blah, blah, blah. It's got an amount. It's got a difficulty, not an amount. But that's the details of each question. And I'm at the bottom tier of this real quick. Those cards can be used on multiple games based on their categories. And the categories can be used on multiple games. And the players have a record of their accumulated winnings based on which game. So each one of these tables has a many-to-many in between it, because all of this bottom tier data, the cards, the players, the categories, can be repurposed on any game. I can use the same ServiceNow category. I can use the same Star Trek category. I can use the same Lord of the Rings category on any game that I put together. It just depends how I want to slice and dice this data. So, quick tip on the bottom, that good table naming is very, very helpful. I tended, when on these, for example, the scope on this was X_SNC_Jeopardy, and then I just called it game. Not games. I have a particular peeve about tables with plurals in them, because then your lists get kind of funky and the records get funky, and when you're scripting, you can't remember, is this plural or not? So keep life simple. Stick with a singular table name. The many-to-manys, when you create the definition, gives you a definition name. It'll say like games cards. It's like X, SNC, Jeopardy, M2M, games cards. Now, that is not a name that I like, because it's got plurals in it, and it may not be descriptive. So keeping a standardized naming scheme becomes very helpful when you start getting into the scripting components, the reporting components, where you need to access those table names directly. So just wanted to throw that out there. I like to put best practices out whenever you can get them. As far as how I architected this, I have the service portal widget, for example, the card view that you saw up on top, has a client script, a server script, and the HTML component. There's CSS in there, of course, as well. I like to do all of my communications with the server through a scripted REST API. You can do the c.server.update and put more logic in the server script if you wish. I know there are advantages. I've gone through the advanced widget workshop that we did at, I think it was Knowledge 17, 18, and possibly even 19. I don't know if it was around this year. But there are some good tips in there for when you should use them. Some of them are performance-based. I'm loading one record, so I'm not worried too much about my performance time. The server script loads the initial data, and then I keep all of the core logic in script includes. When I'm updating a record, when I'm advancing a player, when I'm changing ownership, blah, blah, blah. Whatever the logic is that has to update that, that stays in the script includes as much as possible. So I'll show you some examples of this. Just wanted to give you an architectural view of when is the widget getting an update from the server? When is it posting something? When is it getting something? How are we doing that? How is the whole live thing going on with the host application? We'll get into that in just a minute. So as far as these various components, we've got the Jeopardy board. You saw that. That was the initial grid. It needs to send a message to the card to say, display the information for this card. This is what Chuck clicked on. Go put up the question about founding ServiceNow in 2004. That also needs to update the host application, which is a totally different service portal page and widget. Okay, so that's that down and over thing. The final Jeopardy is also receiving incoming information from the player's mobile widget. So when they say, here's my wager, here's my answer, submit, I want to know things light up on that final Jeopardy board, that everybody's done submitting their answers. We don't have when you go to a developer meetup or Knowledge or even your company picnic, may not necessarily have the advantage of having one of those fancy tables that all the Jeopardy contestants stand in front of that lights up and says, I'm done. So this was my mechanism for doing that. Okay? Still good? That's the...
Hey, and by the way, you gave all the contestants a QR code so they could scan it with their phone. It took them directly to the game board where they could put in their wager. So,
yes, there was also a short URL on there as well, because it can be fairly lengthy.
Right.
So that was, again, all about experience. How quickly can we get these players in there? Okay, so you saw, let's go, that's the architecture. Let's go through some of the goals and solutions. My first goal was to add media. I wanted that characteristic sound. I wanted that those Jeopardy sounds, the final Jeopardy, the daily double, and the timeout button added to this component. And you think, that's not too hard, but how do you do that in ServiceNow? How do you latch onto that information? So I'm going to give you a demonstration, not of the application at this point, but of the components that were used to build that. So in Service Portal Widget Editor, I am going to put away my client script and server script for the moment. And this is the Jeopardy card. When it comes up, it checks a few things. And when I serve that card to the widget, there's a server script component that says, go get all the card information. I want to know, is there an image attached to this thing? Is there a sound attached to this thing? What is the answer? What is the difficulty? All of that. So a good data model is crucial in this. Everything about that card is under data.card. So I know the attachment name, I know the attachment type, which you can see here, and I just do some ng-ifs in this thing. If there is an image, I use an image tag and use the image attachment name. The attachment name is going to come from the sysattachment field, and if you haven't done Service Portal and sysattachment, it's going to come out with like sysid.iix. Doesn't matter that it's not PNG, GIF, JPEG, whatever. It's going to show that picture just fine. So this is how you display an image, and then I use the HTML5 audio control to say if it's an audio component, because I may be doing a musical-based Jeopardy game. It's this song released in 1972 by Carlos Santana, blah blah blah. Ding, that somebody buzzes in an answer. You can play that music. Obviously, watch out for licensing issues on both the images and
play that funky music, white boy.
Right. So that's how we access it. But on some of those components, like if this was a daily double, then I'm going to show the image for the daily double.jpg or play the audio. Where did that come from? That's actually quite easy because that is built into ServiceNow. If you go under System UI, there is an images module. And this has a whole bunch of images that people have uploaded. It does respect scope. So you can see Final Jeopardy and Daily Double are in this scope. They will come along with the application when I publish the update set, et cetera, et cetera. So those are easy. I reference them, and when you go into the record, it says, you can reference this by using a line of code much like this. And if you looked at the widget closely, you probably saw something very much like that for the Daily Double image. The audio components, I think, is fairly recent in the last, I want to say 3-4 years. I say that half tongue-in-cheek because that's a lot of releases and a lot of changes. But I discovered that there is also under System UI an audio files module. And by default, Connect Alert is the only thing in there. So I put mine in, and again, it gives you sample. It didn't give me sample code, but you can.
It was funny. The code was in the list view.
Yeah, I think it was just showing the contents of this audio field to render the player. Yeah, I'm not sure why that's even on the list. That's not something you would normally put on a list view, but that's the controller. But yeah, you could do something very similar to that if you wanted your controller. Copy that, put it in your widget, you're done. Good shortcut, Kreg.
Yeah.
Here, you get extra credit for that.
Thank you. Gold coin. All right.
So that's how I solved the media problem, or media challenge. That's easy enough to do. Quick review, images in System UI images, upload audio to System UI audio files, reference it right in your code. Pretty straightforward. And again, a robust data model is very helpful. If I had these things scattered all over data.this and data.that, I said, look, it's all part of card. So my server script could just say, set data.card to whatever this script include returns. And that way, if I need to set another attribute in there, I just go into my script include, load it up into the object and say, here you go, have a nice object back. All right, next, why is this important for me? Because images and audio can really enhance your portal experience, but use them sparingly and where needed, especially that audio. You don't want your whole office to light up with sounds of double Jeopardy when someone submits a survey or something. Use them responsibly. If it's in a good context, and maybe it's just a that's helpful to whoever's on that. But as you're designing your portal applications, use them appropriately. Let's go on to the next one. That host app. How do we get the dynamic updates onto my phone when I'm hosting this application, when I'm hosting a game of Jeopardy, to give me the right answers? That is due to my good friend, recordWatch. And I'm going to first open up a very helpful article you can find on the community, published by Sush. Very smart guy. A simple example. This is where I started. I just said, hey, are there any examples of recordWatch? It's recordWatch. If you search for recordWatcher, I think it also finds this, but you'll hear people refer to it as the function is actually called recordWatch, or the method. And he gives a great example. You can walk through this. He says there are so many open incidents, and then he says watch for this particular condition on this particular table and update the widget. And you got live widgets. I use this all the time on a project I'm working on right now for live lists. It's wonderful, wonderful. In Service Portal, I use that for the Jeopardy host app. I'll show you where that lives in the client script. So my host app is very simple. It simply says, show me the amount, the answer, and the question. Very easy to do. The server script, even more basic. It just says, go get the active card. Now, the client script, let me turn this and this off so you can actually see the client script a little better. Here is my recordWatch. It's watching this table for any records that change to this condition or that are in this state and change and get updated. And then it comes back with an object that I use to parse in this function. Now, what I'm doing is updating my scope and then calling, where'd it go? Calling a function to update a record. Now, the key to this was, what's being changed? What do I need to display? I need a question and an answer, and maybe some other information. So how I implemented that, I thought was fairly clever.
I'm sure you would.
I know. That's just who I am. On the game record itself, let's take the one we played at DragonCon a couple of weeks ago. There is a field called active card. That is a name value pair field, originally designed for headers on REST APIs, where you've got a name and a value and a name and value. This is stored as JSON information. And if I say show active card, it's of type simple name values. When you see that in the dictionary, it says name/value pairs, I think is what it's called. Very easy. I put it as read-only because I don't want people coming in here and editing it. But when the card record is displayed, one of the first things it says is, hey, go update the game record for what's displayed on the screen. And then the host widget says, oh, the game record's been updated. Sweet. I know about that. And it gets this information. It's a handoff. Plus, I've got a record of what was What was said? I get back a nice JSON object. It's displayed on the form. Not that I look at this on a regular basis, but for debugging, this was much easier than reading JSON.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
So that's how the information is passed from the host from the card to the host application. All right, I'm keeping an eye on the clock, and we've still got a couple more of these to go. So that's my demonstration. Again, high-level review. Name value pair field was very instrumental. The card updates it, says, hey, I'm going to display the question about Fred Luddy. Here you go. Here's the answer. Here's the question. And the host application is using recordWatch to watch this particular record, or any that are in this state, and says, hey, something's been updated. Go update, refresh your screen. You'll get the right answer. recordWatch, hugely helpful for keeping an idea on making live widgets, whether it's a list or a counter or whatever it is. And then the name value pair, great way to store simple JSON payloads. It is not complex data. You can't do an array. It is just name value, name value, name value, name value. Very simple stuff. So for a situation like this, perfect. Easy to plug in, easy to retrieve. Let's go to the next use case, because I think I got a couple more. Final Jeopardy. This was almost like an app unto itself, because it had some interesting requirements about allowing, as Kreg mentioned, the players to scan a QR code on their mobile device, enter their information, put it back. The widget that's being displayed on the big display lights up as the players submit their answer. It turns Daniel Dre's name green when he submits, turns Michael Slobodnik's name green when he submits, and then when everybody submitted, it was all over the place. And of course, there's playing music and showing images and all that good stuff. So the secret to doing this, again, I emphasize the experience was everything I was after on that one. Just make it easy to walk up, do Final Jeopardy. Of course, you got to remember to tell people to bring their phone.
Yeah, that's true. Yep.
The secret for this, there's a couple things that needed to be done. One is if I go into the player's Final Jeopardy applet that's displayed on their mobile device. You know what? I'm going to do this at the same time. Click that. Is to make the widget and the page public. Okay, so underneath my info, that's not it. Under here, I've got a public widget. That means you don't need credentials to access this. But making the widget public only is not the final answer. Wow, that was pretty bad.
Yeah, what's the question, though? Just kidding.
You need to go under the service portal page as well. Now, whether you're doing a password reset or something that doesn't need authentication, you've got to make the page public and any widgets that are on there public. Otherwise, it's going to come up and send you to a login page and go, hey, you want to access this, you need credentials. The other component that you need to be aware of is, since I am doing these updates through a scripted REST API, I have my scripted REST resources down here. And when that person submits, I need to make sure that requires authentication down here is turned off. So obviously you don't want, so that opens you up. Obviously there are security concerns that you need to keep in mind. Is if somebody gets a hold of this REST API on this host, they could sit there and what? If they knew what the parameters were in the payload, they could
keep answering the question.
Update Jeopardy answers. So
yeah,
I counted this as a fairly low risk. So keep that in mind. So public pages, great for when you just need somebody to input something quickly. Maybe it's a survey result. Here, we'll go to the What's in it for me page.
Or maybe a survey. Maybe you were wanting to ask.
Could be a survey, could be submitting anything anonymously, could be a situation like this where you just want them to get in, get out, do their thing, and I really don't care who it was. I just need that information. And then again, recordWatch was in play here on the big board. Let's go back to the big board that says the Final Jeopardy. I named my widgets fairly poorly in this case. Let's put that menu away. And if you look at the client script, there's another recordWatch in here that says, hey, watch out for those players submitting their answers in this table. Here's the many-to-many game to player. Remember that middle tier? This is the middle tier. It says watch for any state that's in the state of final Jeopardy. Technically, there should only be one. And then go and update, turn the background to green when they've submitted their record. So it knows who submitted what. And here's where I varied from the previous example. Let me go back to the game. And, not cards, games. Games, contract. And I have a Final Jeopardy tab. Oops, that's not the one. It's under the players. Here's the many-to-many table. If we take a look at Gary's the guy who did not submit a Final Jeopardy question. I think we had issues with this, but you notice that the Final Jeopardy is a discrete field. Chuck, why didn't you use the name value pair field here? And I went, you know what? I don't know. I changed my mind. I thought about it, and it could easily be converted. But for this, I really only needed those two pieces of information, and it really didn't matter much to me. Plus, it allows me to show you two different ways of doing it. So this stores that person's wager and answer in two discrete fields. All right. One more that I want to show you. Those were the main service portal ones. But then I thought, as this gets out into the public, people are going to be making some pretty cool Jeopardy games. Wouldn't it be great if we had a sort of social component to this? And we could take all of this wonderful information that we have around players, not necessarily the players, because the players for my game are going to vary from yours, but the categories, the cards, the everything. Let's be able to export all of that rich information in one XML, not 5, where one is the game, one is the many-to-many table for the players, one is a many. That gets tedious. One link, one XML file, and be able to share these things. And we've already got some people doing that on the share portal. They've uploaded some XML files. Thank you very much for that. Actually, I think they uploaded to the community, which is even better. And I can show you how that works just by click export game. It's not terribly exciting demo. It downloads one XML file. And when I upload that, which screen is this going to appear on? I should have started the text editor first.
Chuck. Just kidding.
What's that?
I said that was riveting to watch.
That was riveting. Okay. Up comes VS Code with my XML in it. And you can see, as soon as it finishes refreshing.
Oh, look, release notes.
Yeah, release. They do that every time, don't they?
I know.
I've got the Jeopardy game record. There's the end of the Jeopardy game record. Then I get into the many-to-many game category. You go, Chuck, how did you do that? How did you get multiple tables exported in one UI action?
It really looks like you exported an update set, sort of.
It kind of does. The only difference is it's not on the table sysupdate XML, and there's a couple other tags in there but very, very similar. Plus, if you update an update set, you have to make sure it's going to require those tables to be synced in the update set. And we don't always want our dev data going into prod, so I don't recommend that path. But if you want to share information or you want to do a quick refresh from prod on a certain set of tables, here's a way to do it. Take a look at my UI action. In fact, I'm going to look at this through Studio. UI action, export game. This is part of the Jeopardy app. It says, do you have the ability, can you detect whether the exporter exists? Now, the kicker to this is that the class I need to do that trick, it actually comes from an article on S&C Guru called Exporting Service Catalog Items in One Step, where they do all the variables, they do all the UI policies, all the catalog items, very well detailed article. I had to adapt it, obviously, a little bit for my case. And the class that is at the heart of all this, it's done with a processor, is not available in scope. So if I look for what contains, not Joe, I spelled it wrong, Geo, I have my my Jeopardy exporter. That's what's at the heart of all this. The UI action simply calls this with the right parameter. It says, what is the game sysID that I need to export? Because it's on the game record. That's where the UI action is. It's called export with related lists. That is a global and only global scope, which is why this is a separate update set you need to add, which is why the UI action says, do you have this processor? Yes or no. If you don't have the processor, you don't see the link. If you do, I'll show you the link. So the two are related to each other. not to make a joke on related lists. It's easy enough to get the direct related lists, those many-to-manys that are on that form. You just throw them in and you say, here's the table and here's the field that relates this records on this table to this table. Pretty straightforward. It's those deeper tables, that third tier of cards, players, categories, whatever you want to see, that take a little more extra work. So you have to do a glide record and compile your own list of sysids for those. I did that for these two tables. And, also don't forget that there's a reference field in there for one more card on Final Jeopardy. And don't forget that you also have attachments on some of those cards and whatnot. So you have to go farming for those. And don't forget there's actually two tables in there. There's sys attachment and there's sys attachment doc. So if you're dealing with attachments, it gets a little deep. Be aware of that. I've exported this file many, many times and go to another system, import, and it didn't quite work the way you wanted. Once you got those lists of sysids, then you simply call the method add query set. And if I remember right, this is still documented in the docs and dev portal. So you can find documentation on these methods. You say, from this table, use this query, sysid in big join of that array that I had. And I just pack those on, and when you're ready to export records, you call export records. So that's a very, very simple way. Yeah. What's up, Jeremy?
Hey, quick question here. John Anderson came out with the multi-table export tool. Would that be a helpful tool in doing this as well, so that you can include the attachments real easily, pick your tables, apply your filters, and include those attachments with those records? Would that work here?
I love it when someone tells me I did it the hard way. I'm not terribly familiar with what John Anderson built. I'd love to include a reference. If somebody wants to put that in the Q&A, we can include that in the show notes after the show has been processed and back on the community so others can find that. Love to share that information. And I take a look at it.
And maybe we'll do a future TechNow on it. It's a really fun tool, and it comes up in every project I work on. So
sure, cool. Appreciate that's part of the fun of this community. Thank you very much. All right, that is what I had to show. Now, why should I care about export with related lists? Well, XML is obviously a great way to share that information, include all of the attributes, whether it's created dates or modified counts or who's got access to what. XML is a great way to share that information intact from system to system, right down to the sysid level. And this gives you a way to export multiple lists. Maybe it's just a single depth that you want to go to. Maybe it's multiple depths that I had to go through, even to a tertiary depth where the cards had attachments. It got crazy. It was a fun exercise, but that's what I did in an airport one night. So consider building that out. Do we have, before we continue on, first of all, I wanted, before we do our closing and open it up for Q&A, thank you everybody for joining us. Don't sign off yet, because I know there's questions we've got and some reference information, but thank you for joining us. Thank you, Kreg and Jeremy, for hanging out and giving some commentary to this. It was fun to build. It's fun to share. And I hope that somebody's got something useful. We do look forward to doing other potential Deconstruct. If you found this useful, let us know. And we can dig in deeper to some other topics, probably related more towards ITSM or CSM, something like that, with actual customer use case scenarios. So all of the documentation that I talked about is on Docs, or join the community. We've got the developer portal, as we mentioned in the beginning of the show, where you've got your free personal developer instance. We've got a list of all of these shows, including this one, on the community. If you go to bit.ly/ServiceNow-TechNow, let me probably stop the screen sharing at this point. There we are.
Hey, and by the way, in our when we post the show, I think we had a couple people ask, and I think we were able to provide the links to the couple of articles that you were looking for, you were referencing. But we post those in with these. I think they would appreciate it.
Cool. Yeah, definitely. The one to S&C Guru and the one to the community will absolutely be in the show notes. Okay. The articles are there, and if we don't get your question and answer, we've got a few minutes left. I want to make sure that you do go back to that list, find episode 68 on this Deconstruct Advanced Service Portal app, click through that, and we will have all the questions and answers from everybody that we had If you just said hi or I like Chuck's bow tie, probably won't be in that list. We want to make sure that it's useful information for somebody down the road. So, yeah. Jeremy, Kreg, do we have any questions that have come up?
None that we haven't already answered that I can see.
Anything interesting from what you did answer that might be fruitful for the viewer?
Actually, like I said, the people were asking about the links. I think they were interested in what you were doing. Sure. A lot of them was a lot of people were replying to me not seeing the slides and the browser, but that's a whole other issue.
We'll take care of that in post.
Anything in here? Yeah, I think we're good.
All right, Jeremy, anything?
Oh, nothing from my end, Chuck. Everything's great.
Thanks for hanging out. Your first TechNow. Hope there's many more in the future.
Absolutely. Looking forward to it.
Hey, by the way, somebody asked one question. I know and you may want to bring this up, but when the contestants were up at the playing the game, we had a children's game that had buttons on it for people to buzz in. But somebody said, is recordWatch fast enough to use mobile devices as a buzzer?
I think it puts a little variability in there. I thought about that, and I thought if somebody's on Verizon and somebody's on AT&T, there may be carrier issues, and that wouldn't be fair.
Wi-Fi is a little iffy.
Exactly. Yeah. Or they're on their personal Wi-Fi. That might give them an unfair advantage. We don't know. It was just too variable. I decided to spend the $70 or whatever because I knew I'd be playing this a number of times and get those little kids buttons. They actually work fairly well.
They do. They do.
So that was good question. Good question. Mm-hmm. All right. I think we are out of time. We're darn near close to it. Thank you very much again for watching and hanging out with us. We hope that you found something useful, if not mildly entertaining in here, and employ that on your own service portal projects. For Jeremy, Kreg, and me, Chuck Tomasi, have a great day, and we'll talk to you next time. Bye.
Bye. Thanks, everybody.